Hello, everyone. Mark Meckler here, going live because we have a huge announcement. I mean, you probably already know part of this announcement, and that is that Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio has been named President Trump's vice presidential candidate. That's an extraordinarily exciting pick. There's a lot of reasons it's exciting, a lot of reasons it's interesting. But I want to start with this, which is our big announcement, which is J.D. Vance is an official supporter of Convention of States. Back in May of 2022, he was canvassed by our team. He was talked to by our state director, Bill Scott, who I literally just got off the phone with. Bill had a phone conversation with him at an event. I talked to him about Convention of States. He said absolutely he was a supporter. We asked if he was willing to sign the statement that says that he is a supporter. And sure enough, on his car ride to his next event, he was with his campaign director, communications director, or something like that. And we received that on May 22nd. I think it was May 22nd of 2022. So super excited. We have a vice presidential candidate that is an official supporter of Convention of States. We're getting closer and closer to the White House. You might know I've had conversation with President Trump about it. He said generally he was supportive. He liked the idea, but I can't say he's a supporter or an endorser, but I absolutely can say for sure, digitally, we have J.D. Vance, the now vice presidential candidate for the United States of America, the V POTUS, as an official supporter of Convention of States. That's incredibly exciting. So let's dig in. Let's talk about, first of all, this appointment, just generally speaking, this nomination to the vice presidency. I want to look at, there were a whole bunch of candidates that people were saying at the top of the list. Burgum was at the top of the list. Vance was at the top of the list. For a while, people thought Tulsi Gabbard or Vivek Ramaswamy. We had Marco Rubio talked about as the likely candidate pretty recently. And it turns out to be J.D. Vance. A lot of people were sort of saying not J.D. Vance. He's too fiery. He's too conservative. He's too MAGA, and that Trump is going to want somebody to sort of soften him. Seems like Donald Trump went full MAGA. And I think he chose the guy that can best espouse conservative principles. Absolutely incredible. I think J.D. Vance is only 39 years old, so very young to be nominated for this position, but also a torchbearer for the next generation of conservatism. And I think he is a perfect fit for Trump. Look, Trump is going all in and saying, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to be an all-in warrior. And so I want a warrior with me. I mean, there are people who were softer. There are people who are not as aggressive in their expression of conservative values. But I would say nobody better in the field right now on their toes other than J.D. Vance. Maybe Vivek is kind of neck and neck, but J.D. Vance can speak to conservative principles. He's excellent at dealing with the left-wing media. He takes no garbage from anybody on anything. He's going to be a great running mate for Trump, and I think he's going to match him stride for stride. Like some people say you should choose somebody that's going to help you win their state. I mean, presidential politics doesn't really play out that way. There isn't evidence of that in history to tell us that. In fact, basically what we see is that the vice presidential candidate generally has no effect on their own, even on their own state, let alone the overall presidential election. And I think Trump, in choosing Vance, is saying that. He's saying, look, I'm the guy, I'm the candidate, I'm what matters in this race for the presidency. So I'm just going to choose somebody who backs me up and backs me up hard. And I think that's why he chose J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, also a very smart guy. And J.D. Vance finished his undergraduate degree, I think, at Ohio State in 2 years, went on to be at Yale, went on to be the editor of the Yale Law Review. This is really incredible. First went through the Marine Corps. I love that. Came out of the Marine Corps as a corporal, went to Ohio State, then went to Yale Law Review, on to become a best-selling author. He wrote Hillbilly Elegy about sort of what it is to grow up in a very poor blue-collar area of the country, really a working man's tome, really out for the working man, and yet has risen up through some of the highest elite institutions in the country without being an elitist. So I think this is really incredible. Really smart guy, really articulate guy who has the chops, who can speak to conservative values, who also, by the way, has made great inroads in Silicon Valley. He has his own investment fund. He's worked with Peter Thiel and others who are actually financially on our side coming out of Silicon Valley, which is in and of itself an incredible feat. And so he ties us into tech, which is really good. By the way, I think he's the first major candidate of either party to be a Bitcoin supporter. I think he holds a significant sum of Bitcoin for his own account. So he's pro Bitcoin. He's a Silicon Valley guy to some extent, but he's on our side. I mean, to me, this seems like an incredible pick. I think it's a very bold pick by Trump. I think it's going to work to his advantage. I think it helps bring on blue collar folks in the Rust Belt who might otherwise not necessarily be with us or might be on the fence. I don't think it swings the election one way or another, but I do think it gives him a running mate who can match him stride for stride on expressing conservative principles. Okay, I also think, and some people won't like this, that JD is a pragmatist. He's not always going to take the most radically conservative position, and I don't have a problem with that. That's not how you get elected in national politics. That's not how you win the White House. It's not how you become vice president or ultimately president. When you look at the selection of JD Vance, you also have to say, well, what does this mean for 4 years from now? I'm comfortable at this point saying I firmly believe that after the assassination attempt this weekend, that Trump has solidified his grip on the future presidency. I think he is going to be the 47th president of the United States of America. I think this failed assassination attempt, which came out of the radical rhetoric of the left, their cries that he's Hitler, that he's a Nazi, that he's a dictator, that he's going to destroy democracy. Eventually, somebody was going to take a shot at him. I think there's a lot of investigation to be done by that. How did that happen? Why was that rooftop not covered? But I think finding himself in this incredibly strong position, he chose the strongest advocate for his own policies and positions. He didn't try to soften his own image. He didn't try to go for somebody who's more gentle. By the way, normally presidents go for kind of attack dogs, so they don't have to be, but Donald Trump is his own attack dog. So I think this is a fascinating pick. I think it says a lot about where Donald Trump is at mentally and emotionally right now. He's just all in the fight. You saw that as he came out of the assassination attempt, fist raised, shouting, fight, fight, fight. JD Vance is the man for the moment. And amazingly, is a COS supporter. And we have him on record supporting COS in the last couple of years. So this elevates COS to an entirely new level in political discourse. You can have all the naysayers out there that are naysayers about COS, the John Birch Society, the Eagle Forum, whomever. Lay it on us, because now it's Trump's vice presidential pick, right? And you guys can keep standing against this. You could stand with the left. We're going to stand with conservatives in America. Incredible breaking news. Convention of State supporter Senator J.D. Vance is Trump's vice presidential pick. Man, what a huge headline that is. You can read more about it in a blog post on our site. Go to conventionofstates.com. You can read more about J.D. Vance and his support for Convention of States, how that happened, where we're at, what we have from him. Absolutely incredible news for Convention of States. Also think this is interesting if you want to project out in the longer term. What does this mean for 2028? If you presume Trump wins the presidency, JD Vance becomes the vice president, you've got to believe that means JD Vance is going to run for president in 2028. And if he does that, who runs against him? Does it become JD Vance versus Ron DeSantis? Because I don't see one of them stepping into the vice president's position at that point. It'll be a really interesting moment in American history. I love Ron DeSantis. I think JD Vance is great. I'm not picking a side in that fight right now. That fight's not taking place right now. I'm just excited that President Trump chose JD Vance and that JD Vance is a Convention of States supporter. So if you're a Convention of States supporter, go to conventionofstates.com, check it out. I want you to spread this all over the place. You can spread the link to our press release. The press release is there on the site. You can spread the link to the blog. That's there on the site. Just great, huge news. Good for the country, good for Convention of States, which is good for the country. We now have a sitting United States Senator, J.D. Vance, and there are other senators that support Convention of States. But now the one senator that is about to become the vice president of the United States is a Convention of States supporter. I'm super excited about that. And I just wanted to be the one to come to you, tell you guys about this. Please, really important, spread that around. Post that in all your social media. Put it on, if you're on TikTok, I'm not on TikTok, but if you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever it is, share www.conventionestates.com/latest. What you'll see there is the blog post about JD Vance, Convention of State supporter, being nominated for the vice presidency. And I think he will become the next vice president of the United States of America. So I just wanted to bring you that personally. That's it for this live update. Thanks for joining us. Spread this around and go to conventionofstates.com and join the movement.